We have breaking news. The child-eating monster that was captured by authorities was found dead. Authorities are saying that it killed itself while in captivity.
Breaking news just into our newsroom this morning. Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide overnight. ABC News reporting he was found dead in his lower Manhattan jail cell. He was the disgraced millionaire who was facing federal sex trafficking charges. He was set to stand trial next year for allegedly abusing dozens of minor girls in New York and Florida. Big news this morning.
Maybe these monsters have a conscience after all. All that havoc he caused.
Children, and I never tried. I can't have my breast touched. It brings back things. I've tried to breastfeed for the first time, my third child, last year, and it was the most excruciating and heartbreaking thing to not be able to do it because the pain was so intense.
No one expected that he just die. That's because those monsters, those kind of monsters, they wouldn't just kill themselves normally.
I can say that generally speaking, I have two problems with the narrative that he took his own life. The first is that, any good attorney would have told him that he's got two things that are very important going for him. First, he's got the money to retain a vigorous defense team. The second thing is that Epstein was in a position potentially to cut a deal, either with the Trump administration or with some future administration. He had no shortage of people that he could have informed on. The guys that you think of in prison as being desperate enough to take their own lives are generally the ones, right, whose all their boys have figured them out, right? Everyone's ratted on them. They have no one left to sell out for a deal.
Considering its size, it would have assumed that it had a way out. Really? You think someone killed it? I think these kind of monsters don't get that big around here. The news is saying that the monster's guts were removed.
And in that shoe, just so you guys know, because this is something that's not been covered, there's a camera in every cell.
Possibly thousands of sexually suggestive photographs of girls who appear underage, as well as hand-labeled compact discs with titles like Girl Pics Nude and, with the names redacted, Young Name plus Name. The New York Times wrote, the pictures and videos were held in the safe at Epstein's New York mansion, which was the size of a closet. Business Insider quoted an FBI agent who said hard drives were also taken from the safe.
If someone else was involved, forensics might have told an interesting and inconvenient story if they had those guts. It's going to be interesting in how this all goes down. They need to go down with the monster. Those kids need some goddamn justice.
It's just trauma that I didn't even knew I had until, I've worked through a lot of things through therapy and stuff like that, and you just don't even realize that going through something like that molds you to be how you are today. It was a very dark time in my life, but I just hope that basically he gets what prosecuted the way he should have been.
It was awful. You're just thrown into a world that you don't understand, and you don't know how to, you're screaming on the inside and you don't know how to let it come out. And you just become this numb figure who refuses to feel and refuses to speak and refuses, all you do is obey. That's it.
Because it's probably easier, right?
It's much easier than ever talking about it. It takes a long time to start the healing process. I mean, I will never heal. There are pieces from me that can never be put back together. I mean, it took me having a daughter and looking at this beautiful, young, innocent baby to say, I want to speak out about it now. If we can make that point across, that doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how powerful you are, there are girls out there that will speak up, and I don't care if it's 10 years later or 15 years later, whenever you're ready to do it, you do it, and you protect the ones that are younger than us. You protect the ones that we didn't protect before. these guys will get it in the end, because us girls are not going to sit here and just let this keep happening.
It really is heartbreaking how it went after the young ones. Some as young as 14, I hear. Jake, that's the story on the news. This monster was going for kids much younger.
Virginia says they're as young as 12, and there's another report that they're 11 and 12. But then I know of other people that I know of therapists who have counseled Epstein victims, and we can get into that later. And actually, a lot of those victims were, or a number of those victims were under the age of 10.
There's a reason carnivores don't get this big. The only place they could have helped hide the one this size is one of those fancy aquariums next to the Capitol.
Epstein's sex trafficking operation, we now know, operated in large part because he had unfettered access to the global financial system. And for many years, it was JP Morgan that was providing him with that access.
But damn it, they should have seen it. They should have seen this one was a carnivore. I can't imagine them not just sending it away or even putting it down themselves. I've seen them handle much smaller fish. They did it without even the slightest hesitation.
Compare what happened to Jeffrey Epstein to Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, so, and Wesley Snipes, the actor, was another JP Morgan client in 2006, and he was accused of tax fraud by the federal government, and almost instantaneously, he had not been convicted of those charges, he had not admitted to those charges. Almost instantly, the bank kicked him out as a client. And this was almost exactly the same time that Epstein was initially indicted and arrested on for alleged sex crimes, and which is arguably more serious than a tax fraud allegation.
If the aquarium's behind this, I can't even imagine what would make them allow this thing to get so big.
They decided institutionally that the right thing to do was to continue working with him, primarily because he was making them a ton of money. Yeah, and there's a long list of people that he made introductions to. And I think the bank would say that, they are one of the biggest, most prestigious banks in the world, and they don't have any trouble finding clients and on their own or talking to government leaders on their own. But there is no dispute that Epstein, at least with one of the very highest ranking executives of the bank, was someone who the bank was turning to over and over again for advice, for counseling, for introductions, and most of all, for financial services.
Oh man, if this is a cover-up involving the Capitol, it might get dangerous.
Now, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Jake, I wouldn't be able to look my grandkids in the eye without doing anything to make sure these kind of monsters don't come up again. I wouldn't be able to look my maker in the eye. I've been suspected those aquariums by the Capitol don't care about the people around here. It's okay. Jake, you go on, you do what you need to do. You know I can't mince no words with these folks. This story with JP Morgan really highlights reasoning for a big stipulation in the contract for the foundry. Big banks are notorious for simply not caring about the actual populace and funding whoever had money, or whoever has money, power, or influence in a society. The problem is that most people who got rich were rewarded for supporting a sick society. Epstein's financial situation proves this case in point, but unfortunately this isn't even a one-off scenario. These large banks, they fund wars, pollution, and they were even able to escape the consequences of being a part of a recession.
In Washington, is justice for sale? Nearly 4 years after America's financial collapse, not a single senior Wall Street executive has been charged with a crime. Not one. Why? Could it be because Obama raised $49 million from Wall Street, more than any candidate in history? He rewarded top Wall Street donors and supporters with senior jobs. His chief of staff made millions from Wall Street, after Wall Street received billions in bailout money. and Obama stacked his Justice Department with former white-collar criminal defense attorneys. Now, John Corzine, former senator and New Jersey governor, has lost $1.6 billion in customers' money, but hasn't been charged. Corzine has raised over $500,000 for Obama, and Obama still lists Corzine as a fundraiser. Under Obama, Wall Street keeps winning, and Obama keeps taking their cash.
When it comes to lobbying, the problem seems to be pretty straightforward. The more money that they pay politicians, the less oversight and regulations that they're faced with, or they're burdened with. In terms of the contract, the founder came up with a stipulation that would require it to be paired with a state-owned bank or a local credit union. The same large banks tax dollars bailed out in the early 2000s were directly responsible for gaining access to the world's financial system. It was a real turning point and really a lifting of the veil for the people to realize just how off the rails banks were. Plain and simple. Community and state-owned banks were filled with people who knew and cared about the locals in their actual community rather than trying to retain and protect the wealthy class.
No one at the board of directors at any of the biggest banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, those boards of directors are not meeting every month to talk about Harlem or the south side of Chicago or the north side of St. Louis or the north side of Minneapolis or West Oakland. Like, those board members are not talking about those neighborhoods. And I think there's a tremendous amount of value in investing that can only happen when you have that level of connection between the bank and the communities it serves. When everyone up to the chair of the board knows the neighborhoods that the bank is serving.